regular meeting of the Town of Abilene, Virginia Planning Commission to order. Welcome to the Town of Abilene Planning Commission regular meeting. We appreciate your interest and we encourage public participation in our meeting. Your comments are important to our decision-making process. There will be two opportunities during the meeting for you to address the commission. The first will come when we ask for public comment for items not on the agenda. Second opportunity will come if there is a public hearing on the agenda when the chairman declares the public hearing open for comment. Anyone wishing to address the commission will approach the podium, give your first and last name, your complete physical address. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Roll call.
Mr. Austin?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Weaver? Mr. Pennington?
Present.
Mr. Sproles?
Present.
Mr. Wilson?
Present.
And Mr. Schuman.
Present. All right, the next order of business is approval of the minutes, regular meeting August 26, 2024. Was in your packet. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, is there a motion that they be approved as submitted?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any additional discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The next order of business is public comment for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone here that wanted to make comments for items not on the agenda? Is there anybody signed up for that? Okay. Well, then we'll move on. Certificate of appropriateness. The first certificate of appropriateness is Casey St. Louis, 335 Cummings Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. Owner, applicant. Certificate of appropriateness to resurface the existing concrete front porch steps located at 335 Cummings Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. Parentheses, parcel 020-11-1 in parentheses. The staff report.
Good evening, Cale Conklin, Planner 1 of the Town of Abingdon. So owner and applicant Casey St. Louis has requested approval of a certificate of appropriateness to apply stone veneer to the existing concrete painted green front porch steps located at 335 Cummings Street. Little background, the current business located within 335 Cummings Street is Abingdon Olive Oil Company. William A. and Amita Hassinger built this house in 1906 and sold it to John and Eva Hassinger in 1913. The Hassingers named their house The Grove. The applicant proposes to apply an earthen tone stone veneer to the existing concrete painted front porch steps on the north and west elevation of the building. The two existing concrete painted green front porch steps do not have historical significance to the building as they were not original and were added onto the front porch during a later building campaign. And then the applicant has brought a sample of it. This is what it would look like. The applicant also proposes to replace the existing stained wooden front porch tongue and groove flooring and accessible ramp board flooring with treated wood stained brown to match the existing. The existing wooden ramp railing painted a cream color will be replaced with treated wood and painted a cream color to match existing. Both the flooring and ramp railing will match the existing material, design, and appearance. So this will be a waivable action and has been approved by staff. And that's it. Any questions?
Any questions, Mr. Conklin? Does the applicant want to make a statement? You don't have to.
No.
Okay.
Vote yes.
Additional discussion? Is there a motion?
I think it looks very attractive and looks far better than the green steps that are there. And so in light of that, I'd like to make a motion we approve the certificate of appropriateness as set forth in the agenda here today.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Pennington, any additional discussion? Vice President, call the roll.
Mr. Austin?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Pennington?
Aye.
Mr. Sproles?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schuman.
Aye. All right, second certificate of appropriateness is EO Companies, 300 Town Center Drive, Abilene, Virginia, 24210, owner, Bristol Sign Company, P.O. Box 16938, Bristol, Virginia, 24209, applicant, certificate of appropriateness for signage located at 300 Town Center Drive, Abilene, Virginia, 24210, parentheses, parcel 020-12-5B, in parentheses. Staff report.
So the owner, EO Companies, and the applicant, Bristol Sign Company, have requested approval of a certificate of appropriateness to remove and reface the existing freestanding sign and monument sign. A little background, the current business located at 300 Town Center Drive is EO. The existing freestanding sign and monument sign were formerly part of the Abingdon Town Center. The applicant proposes to refurbish the existing internally illuminated freestanding sign located near the intersection of Cumming Street and Cook Street. And this will include removing the top portion of the sign manufacturer and installing a 4-foot by 18-foot section with decorative top, removing the existing top bases and replacing them with 2 white Lexan panes with digital prints. And then each sign panel will measure 15 feet by 5 feet. And then it'll also remove the existing MC units and replace them with 9 flat acrylic panels and divided bar. Each sign panel will measure 20 inch by 60 inch. And then it will remove the existing tenant panels cabinet and painting the brick base Sherwin-Williams peppercorn and repaint the sign structure cool gray. The existing sign has a total area of 446 square feet of signage. With the removal of that decorative topper and tenant panels, the proposed sign will have a total area of 225 square feet. And this will decrease the non-conforming sign's total area by 221 square feet, almost 50%. The applicant also proposes to refurbish the existing internally illuminated monument sign located near the intersection of Cumming Street and Town Center Drive. This will include removing the existing cabinet, installing 1 double-sized cabinet with a decorative topper and flat acrylic bases with digital printed signs. The sign base will measure 5 feet by 9 feet. And then they'll paint the sign cabinet that cool gray and that brick base peppercorn to match the colors of that freestanding sign. And then this existing sign has a total area of 96 square feet of signage. And then it will, with that removal of that decorative topper, it will have 45 square feet of signage, and that will decrease the sign's total area by 51 square feet. So over 50% there too. Any questions?
So what you're saying is basically you would be replacing a non-conforming sign with the sign that, does it actually conform to what the?
It doesn't actually conform, so it's on that cusp of that, we discussed that 660 feet for freestanding signs, that they are allowed 200 square feet and then a height of 50 feet. It's right on that edge borderline. It's pretty close to the similar size of that, right across from Cumming Street on that Food City sign. But yes, it does decrease in conformity, so, or the non-conforming sign, so.
Additional questions for Mr. Conklin?
Diana, whenever we were looking at the Shoney's and the Fiddlers, that was approved because nothing really was changed.
Correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
All right. But that was outside the 660, and I'm trying to recall what the consensus was of the board at that time relative to existing signs.
Correct. So.
Existing non-conforming signs.
Correct. So in the same situation here, if you wanted to require the applicants to bring the sign into conformity, you could. What Caleb has indicated in the staff report is that it is coming closer to being a conforming sign at a total area of 225 square feet, but it is not within that 660 length from the interchange. So in all reality, this would be 50 square feet of total signage they'd be allowed?
Yes, or 60 square feet and then 15 feet in height.
So this would dramatically, I mean, this would reduce, you could reduce the sign by approximately a quarter to down to a quarter of what it is currently. That would make them have to come in for a special use permit and would make them have to come in for a master sign plan. That would be with all of these. Now, since they are requesting basically decreasing the nonconformity of the sign, we thought it made sense to come in as a certificate of appropriateness, because what they're essentially doing is removing portions of the existing sign. They're not building this from the ground up. If they were building it from the ground up, then you would very much need to have them come in for a special use permit. However, since they're really essentially just removing that topper, we thought it was still a certificate of appropriateness.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions or comments?
Caleb, is there not also signage that is along interstate as well? Is there not still something that's associated with the town center that is in vast need of repair as well?
I believe so.
Has
I don't have
has
a
that been addressed
picture
at all
in.
in terms of?
It hasn't, I have not addressed it. They just recently have wall signage right now. I believe it's, yeah. See if you can see it in the state. Yeah, there it is.
Now, is that actually in town?
It is.
It is?
Has that ever been addressed to your knowledge?
That has not been brought to our attention yet.
That's, didn't they subdivide that, so that's not part of the property we're talking about?
In general, all of this, I mean, we're still saying, I mean, even when we're describing this here as the EO sign and that EO is up there, that is not the only business in that location. So you can see that they're still leaving a panel here in the center under the EO panel, and they are replacing these businesses that are on the existing sign. They're going to put them up in this 9-panel area. However, yes, there are other businesses up there, so they have not addressed the interstate sign at all.
But that's not what's before us.
That's not what's before.
No,
us.
it was just a question because it's all linked to the same
Yeah.
development, per se.
Well, and there hasn't been a master sign plan.
Correct.
Correct.
So,
So you could require that they go back and come through with a special use permit to do a master sign plan and include that other sign. Or you could recommend approval, since this is making this sign more conforming. It's really only removing the top portion of an existing sign. Or you could recommend denial and have them come back with a sign that is conforming.
The master sign plan would address the signs on the side of the building also.
It would address every sign
Yes.
along there, correct?
Can we go back and see the side of the building again, please?
The one on the interstate?
Yes, please.
Okay. And they have a representative here, I would assume, so maybe that person would like to talk about why this part wasn't addressed.
I can't speak to that.
If you wanna come up to the podium, please, thank you.
Lisa Walden, Bristol Sign Company Walden, and my address is 26622 Old Salt Works Road in Menifee, Virginia. This sign has actually been discussed several times with, we've discussed it with Food City, and we've also discussed it with EO. It was in the initial plan, but it's an extensive project. Our recommendation was that because it's unstable, the Abingdon Town Center sign needs to be removed completely. The steel that goes up through there was welded together with match plates, and those have since broke loose. But, and we did not install that sign, by the way, just letting you know. And the sheet metal that was on, that's wrapped around it has also since blown off. So that needs to be absolutely removed. The middle part also needs extensive repairs as well. So we would probably have to go in and put new match plates and maybe even new ivy in that The bottom section is fine. We replaced that for Food City when those faces blew out a couple of years ago. So those just have flat faces in them with a divider bar. But no one has, the last time, because we did price this for EO, but we also told them that a road would have to be made in there because the trees have grown up and we cannot get, we don't have any access to the sign. So when we finalized the other two projects with EO, they approved them and put this one on the back table, so I'm not sure if they're gonna move forward with that one yet or not. They have not said anything, but it has been discussed a lot. That's all I know on that.
You described the structural deficiencies of it. Does it pose a danger where it is?
The actual top part of the sign does move back and forth. It sways back and forth, so it is an issue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it being candid.
So, I mean, my husband and I have both been there and watched it, so, and we have discussed that, so,
One of the things is that we could have our code enforcement officer handle that portion if it is actually, has become dangerous. And this side is in, like, next to the interstate, so this would actually have all the benefits of the larger square footage. However, another thing that we often would do with a non-conforming sign is have you all measure it before you remove it, so that if they came back and asked for a larger square footage, we could say that a non-conforming sign had been removed for purposes of safety. And a lot of times people want to leave things up so they don't lose that benefit of a non-conformity for something that is larger than we would normally approve.
So in essence, this entire sign is really probably needs to be removed and replaced. Is that sort of what you're saying?
from the ground to the bottom, where the two pieces are that are white, it's fine. From the next section up to the black section, that can be reworked and salvaged, but from the Abington Town Center, it cannot. It does not need to be there.
Additional questions?
I'm just trying to go back and forth relative to a master sign plan. If it's not gonna delay matters that much. I'm certainly in favor of what's being proposed as far as reducing the non-conforming area and the looks. It's gonna look 10 times better. But having a plan then that pulls everything, with the property in together, I think would be beneficial.
So, let me ask a question, given what Jeff said. Could we potentially approve what's been submitted with the proviso that the applicant would have to come back with a master sign plan? Or would we have to start from the ground up?
Well, you could, however, if this was the only additional sign that they were interested in, then there really wouldn't be the master sign plan portion of that at that time. So they could just come back in with an additional request for another sign. And it sounds like they're just not interested in doing that right now. I would say they don't own Abington Town Center, so I know that you've been working with them and all of that. However, EO isn't the only business in that entire development, so you would be putting pressure on one of the businesses in there to basically bring everybody into conformity, which is a little bit of an oddity, even though I know they're presenting it as if it's from one business tonight.
But the other sign cabinets, and maybe not the other anchor tenant per se, but the others are presented with being filled, it's not gonna be voided spaces, but.
Correct, so they're moving those up, so the other businesses here are moving up onto this portion of the sign. However, this sign could be, if the other portion of the Food City was sold, or another large tenant essentially remodeled one whole portion of that, could be a completely different entity out here on this sign. So if EO is not interested, basically if EO hasn't presented it as a sign for themselves tonight, there could be another tenant that would take that over.
Not as of tonight, but what we did propose to them was in the black area.
Mhm.
That's where they wanted their EO at. So they were taking a prominent position on there. But it's a large sign, so.
And there, I mean, I guess we'll just, we can look at it from the aerial as well, but just from the idea that, you have more than, you essentially have more than one tenant, so EO is here in the large, what used to be the Kmart space, but you, if this, the old Food City turned into something else larger, they may not be ready to put a sign out on the interstate at this time. But in both of these, they would still have that second anchor spot here, and they would have a second anchor spot here.
We're also talking about the number of signage all the way around it. If we're already out of conformity with the other signs, I mean, how much is allowed with, how many billboards per se are in play?
In addition.
Well, I mean, Wendy's doesn't have 4 signs around the building.
Correct. So it's definitely acting more like this sign, which is across the street. So it's acting more like this, with a major tenant at the top and then all of the subtenants here.
Right.
So it's acting the same way. I mean, it already exists, so.
Well, but what I'm saying is, I mean, these particular businesses don't have something along the interstate as well.
Correct, yes.
I mean, this
100%.
particular property
Yes.
is
I see what you're saying.
unique in that, but you've got large signs in all sections of the parcel.
Correct. Correct.
And we're already out of conformity with the others.
Correct.
Well, you know, two things. One is, you are reducing the square footage of the sign. The other thing is, and I think it's important, is you have to have some signage out there to know what's in the development so that basically you direct people to the businesses that are there. And at least in my view, if you make that too small, then people who are looking for a particular business won't see it. And on a busy street, that's a hazard. So you want to make sure that your sign is big enough to direct people to where the businesses actually are in that development. I personally like the idea of, you know, the 2 signs are submitted, but I am concerned about, you know, the interstate signs, and I guess we, you know, not sure we can solve that tonight, but.
No.
You could table it, and you could ask that Bristol Signs return to, EO and ask if they'd be willing to do a master sign plan and bring in the rest of the signs, or at least have a plan, either a date in which the other sign would be removed,
Future.
so you could table it and take those steps.
But could we not approve it, just like the chairman asked a little while ago, approve the COA as submitted, subject to submittal at a later time of the highway sign,
If it
as
was-
to plans?
Sure, if it was a special use permit, you probably could add a condition to it,
Okay.
but just a certificate of appropriateness doesn't really have that ability.
Let's vote in front of what's in front of us. And
Yeah.
Who ultimately owns the interstate sign? Is it still Food City or?
I am not 100% certain, but I believe Food City still owns it.
Well,
Okay.
who owns, but who owns these?
Food City still owns those, but they're in it together.
Right.
I think that we didn't go through Food City on this one with KVAT, but KVAT, I believe, is paying part of they had to approve the revisions to the sign, and I believe that they are paying part of the bill for what's being completed. But I don't have that from Food City, I just have that from EO, so.
Who signed the application, Caleb? Or who turned in the application?
For us.
into this a little bit in the past, which is, it's always interesting if the owner hasn't signed the actual application. So we ran into this on McDonald's with Barry. Do you remember that? Where Barry's indicated that they thought they had a right to a sign location. So we went through the process of approving a sign on the McDonald's property. However, McDonald's said no, just because they think they have an access easement on our property, they do not. And so that one has remained unbuilt because it was approved here, it met all the underlying zoning requirements. However, the easement relationship wasn't completely worked out. So when this would come in as an actual sign permit, if it's approved, it would have to have the property owner's signatures to indicate who has controlling ownership here on the front of the property.
And that, I don't think that'd be a problem. I do have an
Correct.
email stating that
Okay.
before we even went this far.
Okay.
From, and I cannot tell you his name right off the top of my head.
No, we
but I
probably
do
should just
have
put that in the packet, that's
Okay,
all, so,
that's
yeah.
fine.
Is there a suggestion or a motion as to how we should proceed? I mean, I do like the submission of the two signs that are here.
Yeah, the two proposed signs look great.
Yeah.
I think.
No question about that. I just feel like it'd be remiss in my duties if I was knowledgeable of a danger existing and did not use any ability, direct or indirect in this case, to correct that.
So Diana, your previous comment relative to code enforcement,
Correct. Now that we know, I mean, now that she's indicated that that part is dangerous, I know it's a very awkward position for you to possibly be in, that she's essentially outed a sign that she knows about. However, when we have a complaint, if somebody files a complaint, or if we find out about something, staff essentially is the one who files the complaint. So tomorrow, we can essentially file the complaint with the code enforcement department, and then code enforcement will take on the fact that the sign needs to be repaired. It could be that they will come forward next month and just present another sign and go forward with the sign, or we will ask that they take down that top portion. So,
And
I
so that,
apologize, you've been put kind of on the spot there, but.
that action could take place regardless of, and that's,
Yes,
but that mean I agree with Wayne, that needs to be addressed.
and we'll address it immediately.
so with that provision, I recommend that the COA be approved as submitted.
Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Okay. Motion and second, any additional discussion? If not, call the roll.
Mr. Austin?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Pennington?
Aye.
Mr. Quarles?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schuman?
And thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The next order of business, certificate of appropriateness, Mitzi Schrader, 274 West Main Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. Owner applicant, certificate of appropriateness for unapproved painting of the primary elevation of the building and signage located at 274 West Main Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210, parentheses, parcel 020-11-1 in parentheses. Steph.
Mitzi Schrader, owner and applicant, has requested approval of a certificate of appropriateness for the unapproved painting of the primary north elevation of the building and the replacement of the existing projecting sign. The current business located at 274 West Main Street is Mitzi's on Main. On October 3rd, 2024, staff noticed the change of color to the primary north elevation of 274 West Main Street. The applicant was notified of the COA process and an application was submitted. Prior to the changes, staff held a concierge meeting with the applicant on September 20th, 2024. Concierge meeting is when the planning department, building department, tourism department, and our finance department get together with the applicant. It's kind of more of a welcome to the town feel, and explain all the processes that they need to go through for their business. And we explained to them if there was any exterior repairs, replacements, alterations, or signage seen from a public right-of-way, it must be approved by the planning commission before any work can be started. The applicant proposes to paint the wood and brick exterior of the primary north elevation of the building with Sherwin-Williams berries galore. The metal trim around the windows will be painted white to match the white trim of the adjacent business, Potter's Abingdon Opticians. The metal trim around the entrance doors will be painted gray/silver to match the metallic look of the door. And then the bottom of the awning will be painted white, and that will be considered a waivable action. The applicant proposes to remove the existing metal pre-finished black projecting sign above the business and install a non-illuminated metal projecting sign with vinyl lettering to the existing metal pre-finished black brackets. The sign will measure 3 feet by 3 feet for a total area of 9 square feet, and the sign will have a white background with a floral logo and black lettering as seen on the rendering below, and then the proposed projecting sign meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance in the B3 district.
Questions for Mr. Conklin? Does the applicant wish to make a statement?
If you could just come up to the podium.
I'd like to apologize. I had asked, I didn't read, thank you for the concierge meeting, but I didn't read the paperwork like I should have. I didn't read the
If you
paperwork.
would give your
Oh.
name and address.
Okay, Mitzi Schrader, 274 West Main Avenue, Virginia, 24210. I didn't read the paperwork, and I knew I had to ask permission for the sign. I didn't, I just asked my landlord, could I paint? And she's been there a long time, and I went and bought the paint, and I painted it, and I'm very sorry. If it's not to your liking, you know, I wanted to apologize. It wasn't anything on purpose. My wish is to make the building just look inviting and clean and pretty, you know, like the sign, you know, and that's really it. But I've never done this before, so I apologize if I don't seem, you know, like I'm either doing or not doing the right thing.
Any questions for Ms. Schrader?
I noticed you filed within 6 days of the time that
Oh,
they
yes,
talked with you
sir,
about it.
yes, sir, I sure did, I'm so sorry, and I was, you know, and he's been so helpful, and everybody's just been really so nice. So and I love my building, I'm very happy with it.
Any additional questions? Is there, what does the commission want to do? Is there a motion? Anybody?
We're doing sign and doing it all together, is that correct?
Yeah.
We're voting on sign and concierge.
What you'd be doing is approving the certificate of appropriateness, which would
Which
include the
includes,
painting
okay.
and the sign.
If you wish, you can do those in 2 different motions. So let's just say you wanted her to do a different color on the building, but just you were okay with the sign, you can do 2 different motions.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented from the certificate of appropriateness across the board.
Is there a second to that motion?
That's for both the sign
That's
and
right,
the
the
colors.
whole COA.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any additional discussion? If not, if you would call the roll.
Mr. Austin?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Pennington?
Aye.
Mr. Sproles?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And
Thank you, and wish you good luck in your business. The next certificate of appropriateness, State Line Wealth Properties, 410 West Main Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. Owner applicant, certificate of appropriateness for exterior changes in signage located at 410 West Main Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210, parentheses, parcel 011-8-1 in parentheses. Step.
State Line Wealth Properties, owner and applicant has requested approval of a certificate of appropriateness for exterior changes to the building and signage. The current business located at 410 West Main Street is State Line Wealth Advisors, and the previous business was Thermco. The applicant proposes to remove the sign face on the existing monument sign structure and replace with a like-for-like 3-foot by 6-foot internally illuminated polycarbonate sign. The sign will display purple lettering and a logo as shown in the rendering below. The applicant proposes to install a non-illuminated wall sign on the primary north elevation of the building. The sign will be black, flat-cut aluminum letters, flush stud mounted to the wall. The sign will measure 12 foot by 2 foot 10 inch for an approximate total of 33.5 square feet. That primary north elevation wall length is 40 feet, so they are allowed 80 square feet of wall signage. The wall sign meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance in the B3 district. And then also the applicant proposes to paint the exterior existing tan colored brick to Sherman-Williams alabaster white and paint the existing white trim to Sherman-Williams tricorn black. The existing front entrance door will also be removed and replaced with a Therma-Tru 36-inch by 80-inch fiberglass 3/4 light left-hand in-swing door, and the door will be the color obsidian as shown in the rendering. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Thompson?
Well, I guess not a question for you, but the wall sign, what's shown on the building is far bigger than 2 feet tall. So, I mean, I know it may be just a scale issue, but if it's actually 2 feet tall by 12 feet, that's fine with me. But
Yeah, I think it's
shown,
just the
it's like 4
rendering.
or 5 feet.
It's
yeah.
just in the rendering, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Does the applicant want to make a statement? Okay.
No.
Any other questions, concerns from anybody on the commission? If not, is there a motion? You can certainly address this.
No, I mean, I'll make a motion that we approve this as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Any additional discussion? If not, if you call the roll.
Mr. Austin?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Pennington?
Aye.
Mr. Sproles?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schuler?
Next order of business is certificate of appropriateness, Jerry Sons, 15775 Fort Hill Highway, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. Applicant Taylor Lindsay, 301 West Main Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. Owner, certificate of appropriateness for signage located at 301 West Main Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. Parentheses, parcel 011-1-80 in parentheses. Staff.
Jerry Science applicant and Taylor Lindsay, the owner, have requested approval or certificate of appropriateness to install signage on the primary south elevation of the building. Some background, there's an existing wall signage on the primary south elevation of the building for Southern Appalachian Dance Center located on the first floor of 301 West Main Street. The applicant proposes to install a non-illuminated CNC carved HDU circular projecting sign attached to a metal pre-finished black bracket on the west side of the primary south elevation of the building. The sign will measure approximately 44 inch by 39 inch for a total area of 12 square feet. The sign will have a dark orange background and have white lettering. And the proposed projecting sign meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance in the B3 district. Any questions?
Questions? The applicant is here. Want to make a statement? Oh, you want to, okay. Any further discussion? Is there a motion? there a second? Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the COA. Would you call the roll?
Mr. Austin?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Pennington?
Aye.
Mr. Sproles?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schuler.
The next order of business, certificate of appropriateness, Taylor Lindsay, 301 West Main Street, Abington, Virginia, 24210. Owner applicant, certificate of appropriateness for condenser unit screening located at 301 West Main Street, Abington, Virginia, 24210, parentheses, parcel 011-1-80, in parentheses.
Taylor Lindsay, owner and applicant, have requested approval of a certificate of appropriateness to install 3 condenser units and screening on the roof of the main building. Some background, according to Places in Time, Volume 2, by Nancy C. King, the brick building was constructed in 1908 by Citizens Bank and Trust Company around 1928. An addition was made to the west side of the structure, and the front window and door arrangement was modified. The applicant proposes to install 2 4-ton and 1 5-ton condenser units onto the center roof of the main building. The 3 units will be supported by 2-inch by 12-inch wooden boards painted white to match the building. Screening will be installed around each of the units using a wood vertical lattice covering painted white to match the existing color of the building and roof. The screening will be approximately 1 foot above the height of the unit. The screened units will not be visible from the public right-of-way on Main Street and will only be visible from Wall Street and Plum Alley on the rear side of the building. And then there's an example of the lattice screening in there. Any questions?
Questions? Is there a unit up there now of some sort?
There are no units installed right now.
Okay. Does the applicant wish to make a statement?
Here to answer questions if you have them. I've got both my kids.
Does anybody have questions for Mr. Lindsay then? Okay. What's the pleasure of the commission?
I move the COA be approved as submitted.
Okay, is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any additional discussion? If not,
Mr. Austin?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Pennington?
Aye.
Mr. Sproles?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schuler.
okay. The next order of business is a public hearing. The certificate of appropriateness, Robert Byers, 266 North Church Street, Abington, Virginia, 24210. Owner applicant, special use permit for an unapproved constructed accessory building in the flood zone, A zone, located at 266 North Church Street, Abington, Virginia, 24210, parentheses, parcel 104, C2-1-91, in parentheses. Staff report.
Robert Byers, owner and applicant, has requested approval of a special use permit for an unapproved constructed accessory building in the flood zone, A zone. Okay, some background on that is the building was constructed without first obtaining a building permit or a special use permit from the Community Development Department. The town was made aware of the building after an encroachment complaint by a neighbor after a survey was conducted on the subject property. The unapproved accessory building is a metal slab-on-grade garage used for miscellaneous storage and maintenance of vehicles for the homeowner. The building is located in a Zone A flood hazard area, which means no base flood elevation data is provided on any FEMA documentation and is assumed to be approximate. There's a small tributary located on the property. However, it appears in the 1960s to 1970s, the homeowners along Church Street installed underground piping to eliminate open channel flow through the backyard. The unapproved accessory building encroached onto the north neighboring property. The applicant removed the lean-to roof on the north elevation of the accessory building to meet the required minimum 5-foot side yard setback. The applicant submitted a boundary line adjustment application to staff for the encroachment of the driveway entrance on the south neighboring property. Due to the boundary line adjustment, the non-conforming primary building was constructed according to the Washington County Land Card before the establishment of a zoning ordinance for the town of Abingdon. Is within the now required minimum 10-foot side yard setback and will require approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals to allow the lot line to be moved and the existing primary building to remain within the required minimum 10-foot side yard setback. The Planning Commission will only be reviewing the unapproved accessory building in the Zone A flood hazard area. Per the memo by the senior engineering tech, the engineer flood report shows that the base flood elevation only increased by 0.27 feet and is within the allowable 1-foot rise in accordance with section 5-7-17 of the zoning ordinance. It is recommended approval of the special use permit by Adrian Gill, senior engineering tech, so the owner may obtain a building permit for the unreviewed building. Once a building permit is issued, the building official will ensure conformance with section 5-7-17 and the Uniform Statewide Building Code. And then some SUP findings, the special use permit findings. Adjacent properties are residentially zoned properties, and the accessory building meets the 5-foot setback on the side and rear yard as stated in the zoning ordinance. Any questions regarding that?
So the neighbor that at least complained, or that this building, the way it's being done now, would not encroach on their property, is that correct?
Yes, so they removed that lean-to roof off that. That they turned in a boundary line adjustment, so they turned in a plat to us. That was also for that driveway on the south side of the property. But once they moved that boundary line, that non-conforming house, the main structure, now has to go get a variance for that. As well as the variance will be needed for the accessory building because it is larger than allowed. You're only allowed 40% of the main structure for square footage, and it is around 103 square feet, 103%.
So that issue would come before the Board of Zoning Appeals,
Yes.
right?
Yes, this
Yes.
is one of those complex ones where they come in front of the Planning Commission and the Town Council for the flooding concerns, and they go in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals for 2 variances. One for the size of the accessory structure, and the second in order to have the plat approved for the primary structure as well.
So we aren't in any way approving the structure.
You are not approving the structure tonight. In fact, if you recommend approval of this flood, of this sitting in this location of the floodplain, it still has to be approved by town council. It's also, the variances would both have to be approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So, you know, the primary thing here is this was built without any building permits. And so they are coming before you after the fact.
And it's actually larger than the original structure.
Yes,
Yes.
it's larger than the home, which is not, they're only supposed to be 40% of the home. So they've actually already removed quite a few square footages. They had 2 lean-tos on this building and they removed those because they were encroaching on their neighbor's property. So it's a very complex one.
And the use of the accessory is a garage. is it?
Yes, yeah.
I assume it has electricity,
Yeah.
water.
Yeah, they turned in a building permit and a plumbing permit and electrical permit as well.
So, the floodplain increases by 0.27 feet. Has anybody talked to the neighbor to the north whose home looks like it's in the floodplain itself and asked them if they're cool with that?
I cannot speak on that. I am not sure if our engineering tech has spoken to them.
That'd be a great idea.
They are all notified by certified mailers. The surrounding property owners are all notified by certified mailers. So they may be in the audience tonight, I don't
I
actually.
mean, that can make a big difference if your house, if a big storm is gonna be 3 inches more depth and your house is in there, that could be a big issue for somebody if they know about it.
The notice they were given, did they notify them that of the increase in the floodplain?
it would have only notified them that a special use permit for this structure being located in the floodplain was on the agenda. It doesn't really say what will happen to their house, because we would not know unless they, of course, also went through a flood study.
So they, yeah, I mean, they should know. I mean, that's important to let them know, not just say, hey, this, it's non-conforming structure. It's like, hey, they're raising floodplain on you.
Yeah, and I mean, if Bundy, if you would like to come up and talk to this, that probably would be a good idea.
I think shouldn't we open the public hearing at some point?
Well, yes, however, he'd be part of the applicant,
Okay.
since he wrote the engineering stuff.
Hello, Matthew Bundy, 190 East Main Street, Abingdon, Virginia. Mr. Wilson's absolutely correct that it is causing a 3.5 inch rise approximately on the neighbor, on the property above. And, otherwise, I mean, if you have any other questions about the report.
I mean, it may not be a big deal. The guy may have a slab 8 inches thick his house sits on it, but it could be. I don't know.
And we can definitely contact the neighbors again and table this until next month's meeting. We follow the requirements of the ordinance, for notification, so.
Well, I mean, yeah, I understand that, but if an engineer is doing a study and says that floodplain's rising, it only makes sense that one would say, well, what does that affect upstream? Well, there's a house sitting right in the floodplain, so I think that's pretty important.
I mean, do you wanna move to table it to make sure that the folks know? I think that would be appropriate,
I
would it
would.
not?
I mean, that would be the way I would lean, yeah.
Unless you indicate that they knew, or,
I mean, after you said everything I know about it, it does create a rise, for sure. Because it's right on top of their properties. Generally, there's not a rise on somebody else's property, when we do.
well, and you need to open the public comment. I mean, you do need to open the public hearing. I don't know if the applicants are here in the audience. I don't know if neighbors are here, but everyone needs to have a chance to talk before you make a motion, about tabling it.
Okay. Then I'm gonna open the public hearing. Does the applicant or anybody else here wanna make a statement at this time?
Well, I don't know what to say, Kenny.
We certainly would.
I'm a bit at a loss here. I'm Jason Harris. I work with the Mahaffey Agency. John Mahaffey is the listing agent. This property's for sale, is under contract. Now we are going through these variances and doing extensions on the contract. I personally don't know. I've been in the property, I've shown it before, I've seen the garage, but as far as floodplain stuff, I don't know that. It's got that, whether that affects upstream. I do know, and Kenny does know too. We've lived in the town of Abingdon all our life. I don't believe I've ever seen much water go through there, but that doesn't necessarily mean it won't happen tonight. But I guess the Army Corps of Engineers in their infinite wisdom decided that that was a floodplain because it comes from in behind Oak Hill and those, by those apartments and down that creek area that doesn't have a creek here, but I don't know. Guys, I apologize.
Well, what Caleb said was that where the stream was, has been, there are sort of piped under that, but that doesn't, I don't know if that addresses Scott's
I can
concern.
Okay. The piping is not gonna deal with a 100-year floodplain.
Oh, okay.
The 100 years kind of gets up on the surface, and it's gonna take up that whole draw through there, and that's why it's getting up onto where, in those houses and up onto that main structure. And the same thing, there's piping across, you can even see in the picture, across the parking lot of the library, and obviously the flood is way past all that piping.
Just say, a month ago, there'd be a lot of people say they'd never seen water flowing in certain places.
Yeah.
They did, so.
Yeah, never
you
seen a
don't know.
hurricane in Ashland.
You don't know, so.
Well, I go back Mr. Austin said earlier about the sign, I think there are times when we need to be careful that we don't approve something that would have a negative impact on people who don't know they would be negatively impacted. That makes me uncomfortable.
And I will just state for the record, there is no requirement for us to do the additional contacting of neighbors. So, you know, we all, not that we're not willing to do that, but I just want to be very clear on that point.
Because we've satisfied what is.
Correct. So, you know, it's one of those tricky slippery slopes where if every time you make, and I'm not against this, I'm just wanting to just
No,
state
there
that.
would be two other opportunities for the affected landowners to
Correct.
come. One
Yes.
before the town council and the other before the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Correct.
Plan, so,
They will be notified quite a bit.
But the notice doesn't really tell them what the issue is.
Yeah, see, that's not, I think they need to know the issue. I truly do.
And we can definitely mail them the engineering report.
Really, did, the survey, they probably hit the slab of that house up there. It looks like the survey I've got in here covers it, it just may not be turned on or whatever. So you, if you have that information and you've got the water service elevation, you can tell immediately if it affects them or not. But I don't have that information from me, so. It would be easily resolvable.
do you have that map?
I don't.
Okay.
It's the pleasure of the commission.
You need to close the hearing first.
Thank you. Yeah, close the public hearing.
You mentioned 2 additional times that neighbors could voice concern, but they're not really the 2 additional zoning appeals are not really voting on this. They're voting on the variances of
The town.
the structure itself.
The town council will.
The town council, though,
The
okay.
town
But if
council.
they're
There will be
not,
at least one.
if they're not advised,
But they have been advised.
they haven't been advised about the potential that Scott's talking about.
That's correct, but they've been advised as to having the ability to come be part of that. I mean, if the town
Right,
is
it
not,
doesn't,
but
it's
if the
not.
town is not required to do it,
It's.
I'm not saying it's not a good thing, I'm just saying if.
I'm just saying, if I'm the town engineer, ethically, I need to go knock on that door and say, hey, here you go. I don't care what's required or not, that's what you do. I think.
And
As an engineer, that's what I would do.
We have one right.
Yeah, I'm one of the neighbors.
Okay. So the house, to the north?
Yeah,
Okay, so,
Can you, I'm sorry, can you step up here and kind of show us which house?
She's south.
She's south.
You're south of
I'm on the south side of it.
okay, okay.
The one where it said, I'm sorry, my name is Linda Boer, and my address is 264 North Church Street. The house that he has is the house I grew up in, so I'm familiar with that house also. And we did, at the back of our house, it was the creek, which very seldom ever had water in, it was enclosed with pipes.
Yeah, 262 is one of them.
Yeah, our property goes down and joins with the library.
Okay.
Question from this board?
262. Your brothers? 260 is mine. What's your brother's?
Thank you.
Excuse me a second, guys. So, he's all done.
notify the adjoining landowners as to the results of the engineering study, and see if that makes any difference to them. It may not. But again, I agree with those who've spoken tonight that it's important. And I do understand fully, and I appreciate the town staff for notifying the adjoining landowners of this hearing, but they still may not realize the significance of it. And I just want to be sure that they do before we take action.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. Any additional discussion?
If seemingly, Mr. Bundy would actually have to calculate not only 262, but continue on up to see, I don't have a topo.
Right.
Or anything of that nature to see where the contours hit and then where that's gonna hit. It may only be 262 that needs to be notified. Don't know.
Yeah,
So-
I'll check back against that and let them know. Step.
So that, I guess the question would be, and I think Mr. Austin's motion would include if there are additional landowners that need to be identified, that would be just part of what
Yes,
the
sir.
motion is. Is that correct?
The motion, yes, I think it said adjoining landowners.
Yeah. Okay. And that's okay with your second, Scott?
Yes.
Okay. Any additional discussion?
And that does, I mean, just, again, this is just for the record, it does put the owners back on the landowner to have their engineer do additional work. So, just so you all are clear that that's what you'll have to do to identify if it increases to other property owners.
I understand, I just feel like it's part of what we do, and I would just hate to put somebody in a difficult position when we knew that was potentially going to happen. Any additional discussion? Not if you call the roll.
Mr. Austin?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Peckinton?
Aye.
Mr. Sproles?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schuman?
Aye. I'm sorry for that. Next order of business is zoning text amendment for lighting.
With the increasing number of new developments and businesses in the town of Abingdon, additional lighting code language is needed to ensure the purpose and intent of the lighting code is met with defined language. Staff has found that the existing language is too broad for interpretation and that additional regulation can support that. Staff proposes the regulations for lighting include a lighting plan submitted for any new or existing developments, spillover light standards on adjacent properties, prohibit window lighting, and then no moving, blinking, flashing, or wraparound bands of lighting on the exterior or interior of a building or seen from a public right-of-way. And then staff requests that the planning commission review the proposed zoning text amendment language below. After edits and suggestions are proposed, staff will return with, well, actually this is the ordinance change, because we came in August and we showed you guys this. There has been no changes from last time. You guys said that you'd like to see a zoning text amendment. So we are coming to you today with this, and then if you are okay with this and approve this, we will go to town council for this.
Yeah, the way I'm looking at this, all the changes you're talking about are on page 4, is that correct?
Yes, yep.
The H through little d.
Well, actually, on
Bottom of
page
page 3. Section C.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, okay. So it'd be that and then page 4. So do we need to have a motion to approve this to send it to council? Is that?
If you all are ready, we'll bring it back as an actual ordinance. So I think we workshopped it the first time, and this is the language that, based on your discussion, that we're bringing you tonight. So you don't need to make a motion unless, if you are okay with what we have here, we'll bring it back in a actual
Okay.
ordinance form.
So, to y'all, a lighting plan is a plan of the proposed development with the foot candles?
Yeah,
to the-
yeah, and it'll show around and how much it's actually on
Yeah.
adjacent properties, and then also height of light poles we'd like to see as well.
Okay, I can't remember there's a name for that, type of plan, and that's why, we might wanna include that lighting plan, including, I'm just drawing a blank on
I think that's what B is trying to cover. It may not be covering it as you mentioned, it says type of lighting fixtures, location of fixtures, color, temperature, height of poles, and the luminance of light. So, I mean, if we wanna add the words foot candles in here.
let me,
The photometric plan is?
photometric plan,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
yeah.
I think that needs to be
So
at least
this-
mentioned in there, just.
So is the.
Because an engineering,
Okay.
electrical engineering firm or lighting firm would be, photometrics, okay, but.
Would you like me to change the lighting plan to photometric plan then?
Well.
Cause we can do that as well.
Well, if you're talking about, you want the, okay, 8.1.4 B covers the heights and everything, so yeah, I would say, like a lighting plan, I would say, photometrics or photometric plan.
Shouldn't that just be remove that in luminance of light and instead say photometric plan?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other suggestions?
That's the same thing that Fugue City went through with their parking lot lights, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying, so.
Any other suggested changes? I guess we move on to zoning text amendment for signage. And we have discussed this.
Okay, before we begin, we did a public notice for the lighting, so do we need to make a motion just for the amendment, or? should-
No, we'll have to bring it back. We didn't bring it as an ordinance to them.
Okay.
It's
I thought it was
interesting
just a
because
memo. It was just a memo tonight.
under the signage, they have photometric.
Yeah. We still have.
Now, the signage is,
Okay, yeah, for the changeable signage, okay. At the August 26, 2024 Planning Commission regular meeting, the commission requested that staff look into a zone text amendment for digital changeable signs within the entrance corridor overlay district between Portville Highway and Cumming Street. Staff proposed the regulations for signage include digital changeable signs prohibited in the entrance corridor overlay district between Portfield Highway and Cumming Street. Existing digital signage within the EC may be replaced with an identical size digital changeable sign. Photometric plan is required to verify emitted light from digital signs. The addition of minor directional signage for businesses. Decreasing the maximum area of temporary signs in residential districts with non-residential uses and neighborhood signs from 64 square feet to 32 square feet. And then changing temporary signage in the old and historic district from HBRB approval with no size requirements to no HBRB approval with a maximum size of 12 square feet in area and 4 feet in height. And then staff requests that the planning commission review the proposed zoning text amendment language below. And then after edits and suggestions, we will come back with an ordinance amendment. Yeah, any questions on any of those amendments?
any questions or concerns?
So this is specifically based on our last discussion, we decided not to have digital changeable signs, basically from Porterfield Highway to Cummings, so that protects that Main Street downtown area.
And then that's already in place from Cummings all the way up to Thompson.
Because now you're in the So you moved out of that into the HPRB, which they would not be allowed. And so we're specifically doing this for that. Then basically from Main Street to the interstate, obviously we've got quite a few changeable signs there, so it would make all of those non-conforming if we added it there, so it doesn't make sense.
And then the issue of the minor signs. Questions or concerns, changes? So you come back to the next meeting with the final.
We'll come back with both of these as an ordinance, and then you all can make a motion at that time.
Okay. The next one is zoning map amendment and zoning text amendment for entrance corridor on Porterfield Highway. And this is also something we discussed at the last meeting.
Yeah, the only thing that is here tonight, which I'm hoping you guys have it in your.
It's on the last page
Okay.
of that.
So, similar to how we worked through the HPRB expansion, we're working through this as well. So, these are the owners that are in the expansion area that you all are looking at for entrance corridor. And so, the key thing here, I don't think they put them in, did you all give it to me in a list? No.
Totally for them.
If you all know these owners, tonight would be a good time for you to basically pick out the ones you know and have a conversation with them.
I'll take the first one.
Okay. He's got his duty done. And that, I mean, again, because this is, you know, to me, this is more than just an ordinance change. I mean, this is a relationship that you all will now have with these people, as they come in to complete their project. So, we have one assigned. As you look through here, is there anyone else that anyone knows?
Well, you got Marathon Realty Corp. Unaddressed, that's basically Food City, that's, and I guess that would be Steven Spangler. I don't necessarily know.
A portion of theirs is already in the entrance corridor here, you can see, at Porterfield and Russell Road. So, it really would just be bringing in this southern portion of their property, so, we can definitely let them know.
I think at one time you told us that there was potentially development where the old tobacco warehouses are. Would that be in cover here as well?
It would, yes, yes.
And I think we need to go forward with this, I guess.
So, there's no one else that knows anyone else on this list?
I can speak with them in this number.
Okay.
First Bank and Trust, anyone here know anything about that? Mr.
Anybody
Pennington, could you take care of that?
I can knock half that list off, I guess.
Okay.
That's-
Taking the heavy load.
I noticed that there's a Josephine Shelton unaddressed.
Yeah, I don't know, some of these, I'm not sure if anybody knows them. I mean, the next step for us,
MS development, is that Matt Smith development, or is that a different, am I thinking different?
that might be Matt Smith, I'm not entirely sure.
MS Development.
Is that Matt?
Matt.
That's
Yeah.
Matt.
Yeah, that's the Camellia Center.
Okay.
So the next step is, if you all are going to contact these people and just have a conversation with them, the ones that we know. So it looks like nobody knows Justin Walsh. Because the next step is for us to basically send certified letters, to notify them of this change. It's always just easier if they know it's coming, so, there's also the Wyatt Southgate Theater LLC, I'm not sure who that is.
No, I can let the bank know and I'll contact Matt.
I
All right, so.
Just the easy ones, I guess.
The bank, Matt, I think we can talk to Marathon Realty unless there's somebody else that really would like to speak with them. And then there's My Home Tabitha Mullins.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, it's fine, if we don't,
I
there'll
mean,
be
the
some. that-
Sheltons and the Mullins apparently live side by side,
Mhm.
but I don't recognize either name.
All right, well, we will create basically a letter, we'll send it out to you all so you can take it with you if you want to in your discussions, and then we will go ahead and contact everyone probably next month, and we'll bring this back like the following month. There's no real need to go super quick with it. That's what we found with the HPRB, it's like, we really need to just move into this slowly, make sure everybody is on board, so that if you do get opposition, you know, it'll be
Would we
minimal.
tell them that they, if they have concerns, they should come to the planning commission meeting? Is that how that would work?
Correct, correct. Because this will actually be is a zone map amendment, so we'll be actually changing the entrance corridor overlay, and so it will have to come through you and then to the town council as well. All right, well, yeah, if you all would please talk to those folks, and then I'll get you a letter, a sample letter, so that you can take it with you.
Next order of business is the availability for meetings on November 25th and December 23rd. I'm personally available on either of those days.
Thanksgiving is much later this year, so. But that is the Monday before Thanksgiving, so.
I should be able to do both.
Okay,
Same thing, maybe the one from.
okay, all right. And also the Monday before Christmas?
For me.
Okay, all right, great. Then we will keep them as scheduled.
Are we, I saw that, I guess we're still advertising for the 7.
Yeah, I know, when I called out Mr. Weaver's, I mean, yeah, I was just like, oh, wait, no, he's not even on board, but I'm just looking down my agenda, so, yeah, so we are still advertising for that.
All right. Do we need to do anything with the waivers?
No, they're just so that you know that they have.
Any questions or concerns about the waivers? All right. If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay.
Something,
All,
yeah.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.